Welcome in on Texas football. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Brett Robin. This is Talkin Ball, Monday night episode, sponsored by our friend Dr. Brett Robin, orthopedic there in Austin. We'll talk a little bit more about him later. Jerry, we've been tracking recruit visits all spring long now, or winter long. More big names added to that list today. I'll get your takes on those because you talked to a couple people about them. Also, we're going to talk a little basketball. The women coming off maybe the biggest win in the last, 2 decades in Austin for them with a win over number 2 South Carolina, 66-62. The men now have number 3 ranked, I believe. Alabama coming to town tomorrow. Baseball starts its schedule on Friday with a trip up to what used to be Globe Life Field. I think it's now Dakin Field or something, and they're playing Louisville on Friday. So a lot of stuff going on around the 40 acres. We're going to talk about it all. But let's start with recruiting, Jerry, and let's start with Javian Osborne, the running back out of Forney. Texas has kind of circled him and has for a long period of time as the guy that they really like in this class in state. And he looks really, really good. Give us what you got, the latest, and his visit now set to the Texas Longhorns.
Yeah, exchanged some messages with Javian right before he put it out publicly, I think. But he scheduled his Texas official visit for June 13th through the 15th. Obviously, that 13th weekend, the 15th weekend, here you're seeing, if he reminds you, Ashton Jainty, you're not the only one. He's got a little juice to him like that, and a little bit of the same size. He got that flair. But Javian Osborne will officially visit Texas June 13th through 15th. He's the second running back to announce an official visit. Xavier Crowell, the running back from Jackson, Alabama. Different styles of backs they are. He is coming in June 6th through the 8th. He is the recent reclass from 27 to 26 in Jackson, Alabama there that Shard Choice offered spring of his freshman year. This is the most impressive run on this tape, by the way, right there. I mean, that's the one. And then to accelerate out of the cut, Bobby, that's pretty good stuff against Dallas 6A competition, by the way. The competition, I believe, for Osborne remains Michigan. He did take a junior day visit to Georgia the week before going to Texas January 20th that weekend. And Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman also has Notre Dame in the mix on some level. And I think Texas and Michigan have been the top 2 for a while. But I do think, look, Georgia's going to make a move. Notre Dame's going to try to make a move because on the tape you see, I mean, he's one of the top 3, 4, 5 backs in the country in this class. And he may be the best 5'9", 195-pound back in this class, Bobby.
That's what I was going to ask. How big is he really? And you've seen him in person.
Oh, yeah.
Is he going to end up being 215, 220 like an Ashton Jainty?
Exactly. That's exactly what he's going to be. 210, 212, 215 in that range. They're very similar frame kids. Now he's bigger than Jainty was coming out of high school, but that's what it's going to be like, 210, 215, and anywhere in that realm. But he is going to be a put-together guy. He's going to be a little block of granite is what he's going to be a year into a college strength and conditioning program. But he may run 10.8 on the track this spring. We'll see if he gets in that number. He had his sophomore season, he had a huge year for Forney in 5A. They went all the way to state semis, I believe it was. He plays for Jeff Fleener, the head coach there, was the OC for Kyler Murray at Allen. So he's had some really good players over the years, and this is easily the best running back he's ever had, and that's saying something. But then this year he broke his hand, so he missed a game and a half. So he played nine and a half games, put up about 1,200 yards. So people looked at his stats, say, why did they drop? They played 5 less games, and then he got a broken hand, which he played through, but obviously it limited what he could do, and he did miss a game and a half.
That's a tremendous player, no question about it.
It's acceleration, right, Bobby? It's acceleration to the second level.
Yeah, it's not just that; it's the ability to make the first person miss and not hit you square. That ultimately, I'm not sitting here trying to say he's Saquon Barkley or anything like that with his athleticism and his ability to get people away from him. But that's really what it comes down to. What do you do if you're a running back? How do you maximize your runs? You can maximize them any number of ways. It can be through speed. It can be through making people miss. It can be, giving them a leg and taking it away. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways a running back can be effective. I mean, Earl Campbell's different than Adrian Peterson is different than Saquon Barkley, right? All three of them, though, great running backs. And so they all going to have it. Who are the other running backs in this class? Because we've talked about all of them. Xavier Crowell is a guy that I know I like. He's out of Alabama.
Yeah.
And then there's one down in Florida, Jared Cooper. Is that his name? Or
Derek
Derek
Cooper, who I believe may be ranked as the number one back in the country. He's at Chaminade Madonna in Hollywood, same school as Jeremiah Smith, Kenyatta Jackson at Ohio State, and a number of other elite college players. That Chaminade Madonna program has been putting them out for a while, and this coach really has it going right now. And then there's Amari Latimer at Sandy Creek High in Tyrone, Georgia. I think those are your four main guys right now. KJ Edwards is somewhere in that mix as well, but I think and those guys are bigger. Like Amari Latimer was more of a downhill guy, 5'11", 210, really good basketball player too. I think he's getting ready to wrap up basketball season there in that Atlanta area, but really good downhill back, power back. He would be more of a Katron Allen type when you start looking at comparisons, how one back compares to others. He's more in that Katron Allen mold. Derek Cooper, I mean, look, I talked to somebody close with him. They think Derek Cooper may run in the high 10.4s, low 10.5s in the 100 this year. If he puts that on the board fully, I know Leo 24/7 has Cooper listed as safety. I don't understand. He was committed to Georgia as a running back prior. Man, he's a heck of a football player, but he's been recruited as a running back. But he is 6'1", 200, 205 pounds, doesn't come off the high school field. He plays until he cramps. But if he runs 10.49, 10.53, 10.55 this spring, fully automatic time at that height and weight, he is gonna shoot up into the top 10 prospects in the country. He's a really good football player. Texas in on some really all four of those guys who I expect to officially visit, Bobby. All those guys are elite guys.
That's what I was going to say to you. I mean, like, they're on the right guys. These guys, the JV and Osborns, they're on the right guys. They got to figure out which one wants to be a Longhorn, right? And which one makes sense. I guess we're going to be finding that out. That's good news that Javion Osborne, though, has set up an official visit to the Longhorns June 13th through 15th. If you want the entire list of people who have set up visits thus far to Texas and what we know, make sure you check that out at ontexasfootball.com. Jerry and CJ and Jeff Howe have a running list right now of all the official visits set up. Again, that's ontexasfootball.com. All right, before we go to the defensive backfield coach search that we need to talk about, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, the Monday Night Talkin' Ball, brought to you by our friend Dr. Brett Robin at Austin Orthopedic Institute. He's sponsoring On Texas Football. Dr. Robin, a former Longhorn running back, knows what it takes to stay in the game, and he's here for athletes of all ages. I don't know that Dr. Robin as a running back had quite the move some of those guys we watched, Jerry, but he was a really good running back over at Westlake. He specializes now in musculoskeletal health. Dr. Robin treats joint pain and injuries with a conservative approach first, but also offers advanced surgical options, including arthroscopic procedures, fracture management, and total joint replacements. With convenient offices in Austin, Georgetown, and Killeen, Dr. Robin is accepting new patients now. He's accepting new patients now. If you're looking for a top-notch orthopedic, give Dr. Robin a call, 512-856-1000. That's 512-856-1000, and get back to your active lifestyle and doing what you love. Brett is a guy that has been really, really long. He is a Longhorn through and through, even though, his parents went to A&M, by the way. And he was from Westlake, could have went to A&M, decided to go to Texas. So make his own way and has done quite well for himself outside of football now. Jerry, we talk about the defensive backfield position coach that's currently open. A name that CJ Vogel is reporting Texas is very interested in is Mike Mickens, defensive back coach for the last 4 years or 5 years, I believe, at Notre Dame. Was the cornerbacks coach, now is the entire defensive secondary coach. He is apparently being looked at very heavily by the Longhorns. There are some other names out there right now, one from Pitt, one from Rutgers. We've talked about before, someone from USC. But I got to be honest, Jerry, we'll see what all happens here, because I still think that there's some other things at play about how Sark wants to restructure his secondary as a whole, given that he lost not just the safety coach, but also the Nichols coach. All right, got some other questions that we're going to get to and comments before we get going. Forgot to mention congratulations to Moro Ojomo last night, winning the Super Bowl. Congratulations to and not only did Moro win the Super Bowl, he got on the stat sheet, Jerry, with a tackle for loss. And then congrats, obviously, to Xavier Worthy, the first Longhorn to ever score in a Super Bowl with 2 touchdowns. I will add this. This is kind of crazy. Do you realize on the same night, 2 teams, the caliber, 2 colleges, the caliber of Texas and Alabama, had their first ever touchdowns in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, that's
like
wild.
That is just crazy. Devontae Smith, obviously from Alabama. Both of those guys developed and played under Steve Sarkisian offenses, by the way, at Alabama and Texas. Kind of interesting there that they broke that drought under Steve Sarkisian too. All right, we're going to take your questions now and talk a little bit about whatever you guys want to lead us down. Not too deep a rabbit holes, please. I'll put it that way. But we'll start with Cisco Diaz here. Cisco says, with the ups and downs of football, how important will it be for Arch to have his brother Hyde on campus, Jerry?
You know, I think Arch is so built for this and has been prepared for this that, look, it doesn't mean, I think he's been through the toughest part. I think the toughest part for him was not playing.
Yep.
Like, doesn't mean you're not, look, he's been brought up to handle a 3 interception game, right? And be unflappable. Now he's got more emotion. He's got more of the Eli emotion, I think, than stoic Peyton, right? But I don't know. I think he's built for this, and I think he's been through the toughest part. I think it's always helpful to have family around you, right? I mean, somebody he can lean on. But man, I think he's ready for this. I think he's built for this. I think one of the coolest things about Arch now that he has taken over, and I think it was so good of the Mannings to do this, was you're going to have Peyton and Eli around the program now. They're not going to be far. And that doesn't mean in a meddling way, Sark's, not like that, but just in a supportive way of Arch and the Texas players. I think that is going to be one of the coolest things. And I'm not saying they're going to be there all the time, but Peyton was on campus in January. So that's a pretty cool thing. Smith and Rogbo put out a photo with him and Peyton in the Texas facility. He's going to have a ton of support, but I think he's built for this stuff. I think he's been through the tough stuff, Bobby.
Couldn't really do that when Quinn Ewers was the starting.
No, that would have taken away.
You didn't want to overshadow the starter by just going in there and doing that. But now I agree with you. I think it's open. I think it's fair game, right, Jerry? For that to happen. And I think we'll see that happen more and more. All right, this from Samir Paul. When watching the Super Bowl, Pat Mahomes almost looked like he was getting self-sacked. Almost reminded me of the Georgia games with Quinn. The lack of runs was shocking. Chiefs didn't even try, kind of like Texas against Georgia. Jerry, I saw this note. I think it was from Pro Football Focus. One of only 4 games in the next gen stats history where one of the teams didn't blitz a single play. Like one of 4 games ever.
Yeah. In
the next gen stats. I mean, that if your front 4 can get after you that well,
you don't have to blitz.
You don't have to blitz. The Chiefs, in fairness for them, their guard was playing left tackle.
Yeah.
They had some young guys on that line, and their offensive line was not great this year as it was. And they have not had a great run game all year. And so I hear that. I don't know that Mahomes was getting self-sacked. All right, here it is. The Eagles did not blitz once across 42 dropbacks in Super Bowl 59. Just the 4th defense to not blitz in a game in the next-gen stats era. That's just crazy, Jerry. Relying on their front 4, the Eagles generated 16 pressures and sacked Mahomes 6 times, his most in a game in his career. I don't know that he was self-sacking Samir, but he definitely was having problems maneuvering the pocket because there weren't many escape routes.
Yeah.
His typical escape routes just weren't there because the Eagles were getting so much pressure from a variety of angles. It wasn't just any one person, although Josh Sweat looked like he's a good player.
Look, I covered
good player.
I covered Josh. Josh, people forget now that he's recovered. He had a devastating injury his senior year. Some people question whether he was going to be able to come back and play. He was being compared to Jadeveon Clowney before. He had a devastating injury. And we had him I was at ESPN. We had him in the Under Armour game, and being close to that, there were some questions whether he was going to be able to continue for a while. So him, Jalen Carter, man, had multiple 5-stars on that defensive lineman out of high school. I'll tell you that right now. I mean,
Jalen Carter, absolutely. Mora Ojomo in that list. By the way, Jerry, I got to looking. I went down a rabbit hole myself this afternoon. Mora Ojomo right now has been in the league for 2 years. He's 23 years old. Okay. You realize he's younger than like 3 of the top 10 defensive tackles projected in this year's NFL draft. He's still younger than them. That's pretty crazy if you think about it.
And that's
he's younger than Jermaine Lole.
Yeah, exactly. That's why this morning we said on Coffee and Football, run your own race, Andre Kojo. He's the same guy. He was 16 years, 11 months when he reported to Texas. Just run your own race, have some patience, because y'all's development is so much different. Hey, I went down a rabbit hole. I'm sure it's been tweeted out and people in this, and I just hadn't thought about it, by the way, but I'm sure people in the chat know this. Bobby, how many of the last 4 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, all Texas high school quarterbacks? That's Hurts, 2 Mahomes, Matt Stafford. Then you had Brady, you had Mahomes again, you had Brady, then you had Nick Foles. So 6 of your last 9 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks now were state of Texas high school quarterbacks. That's pretty dominant when only Tom Brady can break your string.
You know what's piss you off more? They only offered Matt Stafford.
Yeah, exactly. And they knew they weren't going to get him.
That like every time I see Jalen Hurts, it just hurts. It literally, I see it and I'm just like, ugh. And because I respect him a hell of a lot as a player and as a competitor. He took Alabama, which was a loaded Alabama team, to the national championship game his senior year or his freshman year as a true freshman. He's just so physically ready, and Texas did not even give him the time of day at quarterback.
And by the way, for those that don't know the Matthew Stafford story, Mac offered him. They were never going to get him, though, because Mark Richt at Georgia, his dad was a former swim coach at FSU, Stafford, and they were really tight, and that was just never going to happen.
Yeah, no doubt. Tremendous player. Tremendous high school player too, though, by the way. Here we go. This was from Kenneth Cassidy. Philadelphia has mastered the Tush push. What are the chances Texas copies that recipe? Here's a bigger question. What are the chances that's not allowed next year?
I would say pretty strong.
I think the NFL is probably going to take that out of the game plan because it's too boring of a play for the NFL.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead, get behind it, but you can't push him. You can run a quarterback sneak. They're not going to stop that. But the pushing from behind, I think they're going to have to take that away. I will say this. If it stays in there for the college game, Texas is much more likely to run that with an Arch Manning or a Trey Owens than they would a Quinn Ewers. Just different body types, different sizes, in my opinion. Arch Manning can run that play. I don't know that Quinn Ewers really could, Jerry.
Yeah.
He's not doing that. So, but could Texas, or should they do it? Yeah, absolutely.
You're right. This is going to go away. I mean, look, you saw Chris Jones getting his neck worked on after that. I mean, that play's going away.
Yeah, it should. It should, in my opinion. All right, some other questions and comments we have. Keep bringing them in. We'll try to do the best we can. Leo saying Mike Mickens, that Notre Dame defensive back coach, also developed Sauce Gardner and Kobe Bryant at Cincinnati. That's good to know. He was absolutely one of their coaches. I know that before going over to Notre Dame as well. We'll see exactly where this takes Texas. If Mickens comes to coach DBs at Texas, does he become the secondary coach? And what does that do with Terry Joseph? How does that all work? Because I don't think he would make a move straight laterally at Texas. So how does that all work in the grand scheme? KD35, I am the best. Jerry, do you think Texas might put Chase Calicut, the safety athlete out of North Shore, in that category instead of safety, since he's so big and might grow out of the position? Right now he's a safety, but what is he, 6'3", 215?
He's 6'3" and a half, almost 6'4", 195. But people say, well, he's not as big as Jonah Williams. They have different frames. Like, he is a longer frame guy with so much more room. I saw him last week. I was at North Shore. If he's not 220 one day, I'll be surprised. I know the North Shore coaches have been there a long time, pretty spot on with their guys, and they think he's going to play close to the line of scrimmage long term. And he wants to be recruited as a safety. So that's kind of the thing, is teams are navigating that recruitment. And I know there's been picks put in for Texas, but if anybody missed my update on him last week after I left North Shore, Oregon's going to be a threat there. I think people maybe got the cart in front of the horse on that, just trying to get some predictions in after junior days. That's not a clear-cut thing. That's a recruitment. I'm not saying he won't end up at Texas. I'm just saying he had a bunch of family, just moved to Portland recently on his mom's side. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on there. It's not a slam dunk. There's a recruitment there. But where he would play long-term, I mean, there's a thought around that North Shore program. It might be hard to keep him from being a linebacker long-term.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I mean, Brian Arakpo was 6'3" and a half, 195 as a high school junior.
Yeah.
So there's no telling where your frame can end up. It just depends how it's built, right? This one from James Richards, our local Georgia fan that likes to come into the chat. Somebody asked him how he was doing. He said, I would be better if Texas would stop recruiting the state of Georgia. You know, Jerry,
I'm proposing a trade to him. I want to propose a trade. Go ahead, Bobby.
Hold on. Let me finish here. You know, it's interesting. Zealous Hicks didn't really make him mad. Oh, we didn't really want him. Emery Winston didn't really make him mad. Nick Brooks, oh, we can get another offensive lineman. Justice Terry pissed them off.
But yeah.
That's the God's honest truth. I think getting Justice Harris out of Manchester, Georgia to Texas is not one they expected. Bottom line. What was your
James, I'll propose a trade. You send Justin Williams and Joseph Jonah Ajonye over to Texas, and Texas will not recruit Tyler Atkinson. You let me know if you want to make the trade.
All right, here we go. This one from Juan Garza. What do y'all think of the possibility of Terry Joseph going to safeties from what CJ Vogel heard? We'll see. We don't know. There's nothing to know yet. Until we see how it's what I've been saying. How is Sark going to manage his entire secondary? And I'm saying all this because there's so many categories, but the one thing that I have been told that is true, Sark really liked having a Nichols coach this year, and PK liked it, and the value was there. I guess I should say PK really liked it. The value was extracted in having a Nichols coach specifically that was very, very good. Now, usually a safeties or a corners coach would also be coaching the Nichols. Now you have an individual guy there. How are they going to reconfigure that entire secondary? And so I don't know if that possibility is out of the ordinary, Juan. I really don't. But we'll have to wait and see what it all means. Jerry, this one from Craig Johnson. Will Texas look into the transfer portal for a power running back, in your opinion?
At this point in time, I don't think so. I think Texas likes where they sit, but let's see after spring practice, because the one thing I've said, there's a caveat to all this. The center backs are have a setback in his rehab. Does Christian Clark have a setback in his rehab? Because those are your two bigger backs in the program. How does James Simon look in spring practice? My question to you, Bobby, is it's all the talk has been power back. But do they need a space back more now?
Oh, so my
If they looked in the
think
portal,
they need a space back. I don't think they need a guy in space more. I think they do need a power back if Cedric Baxter's not healthy.
right?
If he's healthy, I think they're fine there. My piece on it is where's the speed coming from nowadays?
That's why I asked. I mean,
Because Jaden Blue is a fast dude now. To lose him, Xavier Worthy, back-to-back years. I mean, the thing about Steve Sarkisian, he can dial it up. I mean, he got 14 touchdowns for Jaden Blue is ridiculous. That's a ridiculous number for a guy that is not a between the tackles runner.
yeah, and almost got benched at times for fumbles.
Yes, I know, but he has such speed.
Yeah.
So who's going to be as good as Derek or Trey Weisner is, Jerry? He's not that kind of running back. So that's what I wonder, to be honest. I mean, where is that? I don't think Ryan Niblett is not that guy for me. He's not a true running back. And I just, unless I'm missing something, Jerry, I mean, I've been to several practices. I think Ryan Niblett is a great team guy, team first guy, and will put his body in harm's way at no problem, even though he's a smaller guy. But I don't think don't think he's going to be that. So maybe they do need a speed guy. We'll see what they do in the portal, though, too, because I still think they likely take one wide receiver at portal, and that could be a speed guy. Aggressively optimistic Texas fan. Thoughts on the Texas women beating South Carolina and its impact for Aaliyah Chavez, the big-time recruit out of Lubbock, and thoughts on their Final Four chances or natty chances. Aggressively optimistic. If you didn't see this morning's On Texas Football episode, we had Vic Schaefer on for a good 15, 20 minutes. Jerry got to find out, I don't know what his favorite color was. He asked some crazy questions this morning. But long story short, it was clear Vic Schaefer very proud of his women's performance on Sunday. And I think there's no doubt in my mind that it puts them in this category of they're good enough to win it. They've got the pieces. Can they put it all together at the right time? But they're going to. Yeah. I mean, they're good enough.
Look, what Texas did against South Carolina is extremely rare. And I don't have time to look up the stats on this, but they didn't make a 3-point field goal in that game. They were Texas 0 for 4. Yeah. Texas did not. 0 for 4 and won that game. In today's day and age of basketball, that's extremely, extremely, extremely rare. And I could say extremely 50 times, it'd probably still be correct. But what they have is, what Vic talked about, he challenged their toughness after South Carolina beat them up physically in Columbia. He challenged their toughness, and that was a great coaching position to be in when you can challenge your team's toughness and they're still really good. But this team had some time, and they've gone through some sickness. Coach Vic's been sick. They've had girls miss trips, miss games. The flu's been running really through that program. And he tested their toughness, and they checked the box for him yesterday in a big way. And I think that's big. I think they're going to be a 1 seed unless they stub their toe. They got 2 tough games this week at Kentucky, and then Kim Mulkey and her nice, crazy outfits are going to be in town this weekend. If they don't stumble down the stretch, I'm talking lose to a quad 2 type game. If they just if they lose one more game, 2 losses in SEC play, they're going to be a 1 seed. I think maybe no matter what happens in the SEC tournament, as long as they don't lose early, which I don't think they will. So I think they're right there. I think it's matchup dependent for them. And look, they're good enough to get to the Final Four to national championship, but they're not like the UConn men's basketball team last year where you say, nah, nobody can beat them. There's not a matchup that scares you. If somebody plays a zone and they go hit 11 threes, and Texas hits 1 out of 7, 8, 9, doesn't make shots, 2 out of 15. You can get like Notre Dame did to them, but they turned the ball over in that game. There's a certain matchup there that's going to give them problems, and you just have to wait to see how the bracket falls is the deal. I mean, if they don't get that game, they're good enough to win a national championship. If they get in that game where somebody throws a zone at them, and that team that throws a zone at you can also really shoot it on the perimeter, that could give you some issues. So it'll be interesting to see how the bracket falls. But this is, I think, the best team Vic's had at Texas. So, and that's 3 Elite Eight type teams.
Second part of the question there was its impact on Aaliyah Chavez, Jerry, and in your opinion. It seems like Aaliyah Chavez was actually starting to mention South Carolina some in recent weeks. This would have to be one of those things where people say, Texas is really good in basketball, women's basketball too, maybe getting ready, frankly, to take that next step. Like, I think Coach Schaefer's had them on the precipice for a couple of years. They may be getting ready to take that next step. Other than Rory Harmon, they got a relatively young team.
I mean, Shea Holly's a senior, but look, at the guard spot, Rory Harmon and Preston are freshmen. Right?
No, not Harmon.
Oh, sorry.
Preston's freshman.
Preston. Harmon will be back, and Preston's a freshman. Maddie Booker will probably be back one more year. They go top 3 in the WNBA draft. They have some young players around that. Jordan Lee's going to be a tremendous player for Texas. I think Aaliyah Crump signed the McDonald's All-American, who's a 6'1" kind of wing guard who you can do a lot of different things with within a system. It's easy to say Chavez watches Texas and says, oh, I can go in and do all these things there. That's the easy answer. If for some reason, and we think Texas is in a pretty good spot, if for some reason she doesn't, maybe there's more offensive freedom somewhere, and she wants to play at a different style of play. Does Oklahoma provide that? I don't know. What I'll say is the one thing I've always said about her, I'd be surprised if she doesn't go to a Nike school. She's grown up Nike. She's always played Nike. She's always worn the swoosh. And Texas Tech's the Adidas. And there is NIL. I mean, look at Caitlin Clark and all these things that happen when you're a number 1 ranked player. So I'll be surprised if she doesn't go to a Nike. So I'll also say this. I think if she was going to Tech, why wouldn't you just sign early and be done with the process and just be the hometown hero? And the whole thing was set up for her to pick Tech early and just go be the face. But they didn't do that. And to me, I think Nike's a big obstacle for Texas Tech.
Interesting question here from Freelance Society. Any Red River rivalry recruiting battles? Any Texas OU battles right now, Jerry? In your
I need to look this up. Hold on.
Chris Stewart, the Texas commitment out of Pearland Shadow Creek. His brother was offered by OU, but not by Texas. That could end up being a little bit of a battle if things turn there, Jerry, and Texas doesn't offer the brother. Any others like Toa Katoa maybe? Or
he would be one. That's who I was thinking. Katoa would be one. It's interesting, though. I mean, there's not a lot that I'm looking at right now that say, oh, these are just going to be Texas OU battles. Turntine won't go to Oklahoma. Felix Ojo, could he visit potentially? Could Jermaine Bishop look at Oklahoma potentially? KJ Edwards will probably visit Oklahoma, but again, where's he at on Texas board? I mean, Jamion Winfield, I think from Richardson may come down to Texas A&M, and maybe Ole Miss, somebody like that. Georgia might be in there. So, it's not in-state. When you really look at it, I mean, Caden Finley is Texas Notre Dame. In-state, not really. I mean, there's not a lot of those battles right now. And look, Texas is recruiting more out-of-state players than ever in the class, too. Now, Valden Sone, a defensive lineman in Blue Ridge, Virginia, Venables and those guys all went over there. Kenny Baker went over there and offered. There may be some out-of-state ones in this class, but in-state, maybe not as many as past classes.
This one from BVA Old. I think Jamie French will ball this year. High hopes. Jerry, you and I are very similar on this one. I kind of got him circled as maybe the guy that gets a chance early ahead of Dalen McCutcheon and Kalik Lockett to a level, just because I think physically he might be a little bit out in front in that regard. Not over McCutcheon, but Lockett at this point.
I think so. And look, Lockett is his upside long term is really, his ceiling's really high. He came out with needing more physical development than Jamie French did. Jamie French he's a little thicker than people think he is, more muscle tone naturally. It won't surprise me if Jamie French isn't 6'1.5", 6'2", 195 pounds by the first game of the year and look really good. He's that typical Florida public school kid. He's going to blow up in a college strength and conditioning program. He's reminded me of A.D. Mitchell since I first saw him. And A.D. Mitchell was very similar size coming out of high school. I think there's a lot of similarities there. I think Jamie French, also because of his football intelligence, I think he's pretty high. Being around him a few times, I think he's probably going to pick things up and run with it pretty quick at Texas. And that ability to have Sark's trust and Arch's trust, I think will go a long way. I think he'll play. Dale McCutcheon, look, he's going to play behind He's going to play in the same role DeAndre Moore did. So the path to the field is probably a year away because DeAndre Moore is really good.
Thanks for the super chat, BVA Old. From Gray Man, thank you for the super chat as well. No coach speak. Just name me the starting defensive line versus Georgia next year. I'm going to give it a go. No coach speak. Ethan Burke, Travis Shaw, Cole Brevard, Colin Simmons. Those are my four, Jerry. What do you have? Your four. No coach speak.
No.
Starting DM.
Yeah, Simmons, Brevard, Alex January, Ethan Burke.
There you go. So basically, Travis Shaw, as opposed to. So I'm closer to having Shaw ahead of Brevard, by the way. So that's interesting that you went that direction. All right, this one from Bevo Holic. Arch for next 2 years. What happens next 4 years? Boy, that's really reaching into the bag there, Bevo Holic. I mean, I think that we got to see what happens with the quarterbacks on campus. Like for instance, Jerry, is Trey Owens? He's going to be the backup. I think that's going to be what is going to happen this year. But is he going to be appreciably better than KJ Lacey going into next year? I don't know the answer to that. And I think we'll have to wait and see. I actually am really, really high on Trey Owens. And so I kind of think he will be. But if he's not, then what does that look like? Does that mean you fast forward to KJ Lacey, or even does Diabell all of a sudden have a chance to work his way in there in 2 years? I don't know. And just don't know.
I think a lot, and I'm not saying anything will happen, but a lot will depend on how patient Trey Owens is.
Yes.
Because, I mean, people think, the next round of BS is going to be Arch should leave after 1 year because it's not happening. He's not going to play. He's not going to start 13, 14, 15 games and go pro. That's not the Manning way. He's going to be there 2 years. That means Trey Owens has been in the program 3 years. And maybe that's another reason Sark didn't want to have a spring game, by the way. He didn't want Trey Owens to look really good and get a couple $1 million thrown at him.
Notre Dame's going to be sniffing around the portal somewhere.
Just saying, if you don't want to have a spring game, there's a lot of layers to this. But how patient is Trey Owens going to be? Because 3 years is a long time to sit if you're really good. So I don't have the answer. I think it'll have to play out. But he's the designated survivor. He's a play away next year. KJ Lacey, red shirts. Diabell comes in. A lot of that is going to be, does Trey Owens play out his time at Texas? If he does and he develops, then that probably pushes the KJ Lacey Diabell competition. Somebody said Gunnar Rivers. Gunnar Rivers if they can get him. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think a lot of it's going to come down to Trey Owens, how patient he is.
All right. Before we get to the next question, we're going to go to the top of the hour here, so we have time for a couple more questions. I want to say thank you one more time to Dr. Brett Robin at Austin Orthopedic Institute for sponsoring On Texas Football. Dr. Robin, a former Longhorn running back, knows what it takes to stay in the game, and he's here for athletes of all ages. Specializing in musculoskeletal health, Dr. Robin treats joint pain and injuries with a conservative approach first, but then he also offers advanced surgical options, including arthroscopic procedures if need be, as well as fracture management and total joint replacements. With convenient offices in Austin, Georgetown, and Killeen, Dr. Robin is accepting new patients now. So if you're looking for a top-notch orthopedic this new year, give Dr. Robin a call, 512-856-1000. Get back to your active lifestyle and doing what you love to do. That's Dr. Brett Robin, 512-856-1000. All right, this one coming in from number 817, Mr. Talk Too Much. This is an eternal question that I always used to get. Can Texas be making a mistake by recruiting out of state so much? Will we see a rise in the smaller schools due to the national outlook on recruiting? So in other words, does Baylor get a bump? Does TCU get a bump? SMU or even Texas Tech get a bump because Texas is recruiting out of state so much, Jerry? What do you think of that?
Potentially a little, but I don't think it's going to matter that much. Because the guys Texas is battling on in state that they lose are the Devin Sanchez's of the world.
Yep.
And those guys are going to national programs out of state. Now, if there's one, I could throw one scenario at you that could really benefit a Baylor. Byron Murphy was committed to Baylor, and Texas flipped him. I'm not sure Texas would sign Byron Murphy today.
Jahdae Barron signed with Baylor. I mean,
that's why you got to watch the measurables.
Yeah. You can't be over aggressive. I will say this, though. By and large, I think that you got to worry about you. So I would be this much worried about Texas Tech and this much worried about Texas. And so even though it might, a rising tide might lift all ships, I'm most concerned about where it rises Texas to. And so if recruiting out of state is where Steve Sarkisian thinks he needs to go, then I'm all for it. I would add, I think he needs to recruit out of state, particularly on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
The state of Texas does not have enough defensive personnel to be, it just doesn't have the depth that to be an elite defense that Texas would want to be. All right, this one from Jareth Mulholland. He said Ethan Burke over Trey Moore. They play different positions, Jareth. So Ethan Burke plays that strong side end that Barron Sorrell played this past year. So that's the jack side, whereas both Trey Moore and Colin Simmons play the boundary or the weak side defensive end. Just to give you an example. So that's why both Jerry and I had them that way. Juan Garza, did you all watch the Newey Scruggs interview with CDC? Your thoughts? I did watch it, and I thought it was really well done, by the way. For those unfamiliar with Chris Del Conte and his story, the son of a minister / pastor who ran a level of an orphanage, essentially. Chris grew up with 16 brothers and sisters. It was a great interview and made you happy that he's worked so hard and how grateful Chris Del Conte is that he's got what he's got right now too. I thought that was one of the better parts of that. Jerry, did you get a chance to watch that or no?
I've not, but I am after this now.
Okay. All right. Let's go to this one here from Ed B. This will be the last one for tonight. Why has Terry Joseph not been extended? I believe this is the issue right now. Nobody has said that any of the coaches have been extended yet. The only one that anybody has said has been extended is Tashard Choice, and that was kind of off the reservation commentary because Tashard Choice was clearly courted by the Dallas Cowboys. So Sark typically in the offseason, they all announce their extensions and raises at the same time. Kyle Flood, for example, probably do a raise. Kenny Baker probably do a raise. Johnny Nansen, Chris Jackson, all probably do a raise and an extension to some level. So it's not abnormal not to hear about it. That doesn't mean nothing's going on. I'm not trying to say that. I can't tell you that 100% sure for anybody, Ed. But what I would say is it's not abnormal not to hear about it if it has indeed happened. So that's where that's at. All right, Jerry, anything else you have for tonight before we let folks go? And then I got one more thing to tell them.
No, I mean, I think we covered it. Again, 21 official visitors now accounted for, confirmed. I think that number is going to go to 45 plus by June. Once all the dust settles, I think we're going to be 45, maybe even up to 48 official visitors. When you think about, there's going to be a couple more offensive linemen. There's probably maybe a couple more running backs come out with OVs. Diabell doesn't even have his set yet. I think it's going to be the 13th or 20th, obviously, but he hadn't announced that yet. You have defensive linemen. There's going to be a number of D linemen still are on the board yet. Linebackers same, defensive back same. So there's almost double as many official visitors left to lock in dates, if not more than double than what we have right now. So it's we're just kind of tracking that. Texas coaches are on vacation a little bit. They come back in the office Sunday night, start Monday. Sark gave those guys a well-deserved week off. So nobody's really in the offices this week. And then they get going again on Monday, getting ready for spring practice.
Tomorrow night, Texas basketball hosts
there's that
Alabama. That's going to be a tough one for the Longhorns. They need their best showing. If you get a chance, make sure you go out and watch those guys tomorrow night if you're there in Austin, because I do think that Alabama is one of those teams that might actually have a chance to win the national title as well. So make sure you're on to that. All right. Also, make sure you check out ontexasfootball.com. If you're interested in a subscription to ontexasfootball.com and want to know all you can about the Longhorns when we're not on the air or on podcast, make sure you type in ontexasfootball.com and use the promo code OTFOG. When you use the promo code OTFOG, you get a $10 discount for a year. That's only $50 for an entire year by using the promo code OTFOG for ontexasfootball.com. All right, Jerry, that's going to do it. Thank you also to our producer, Matt Hutchison. Matt, by the way, an Eagles fan. Congratulations to him, as well as Moro Ojomo. I will say that. But for Matt, as well as Jerry Hamilton, I'm Bobby Burton. You guys have a good Monday night. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks also to Dr. Brett Robin for his sponsorship. You guys have a good one. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Hook 'em.